Hello and welcome to the Business Standard Morning Show. I'm Ishan Gera and here are the stories for the day. According to an estimate, about 8 lakh Indian students abroad spent around 2.1 trillion rupees to get higher education in 2019. And most of the students prefer to settle overseas after completing their degrees, a loss of young talent which India can ill afford. But a recent government initiative allowing foreign universities to set up campuses at Gandhinagar-based International Financial Services Center's IFSC Gift City offers some hope. Our next report explains this move and how it may change the face of higher education in India.
Following India's liberalization, the government had in 1995 drafted the Foreign Education Bill, which had to be shelved. Another attempt was made in 2006, but the draft law could not cross the cabinet stage. Then in 2010, the UPA-2 government brought the Foreign Educational Institutions Bill, which failed to get enough support in the parliament. The bill lapsed in 2014 as UPA lost power. Now, the centre in its union budget earlier this month announced that world-class foreign universities will be allowed to offer courses in financial management, fintech, science, technology, engineering and mathematics at Gujarat International Finance Tech City or GIFT City, free from domestic regulations. This would complement efforts to provide high-quality human capital to India's financial services industry. This announcement follows the National Education Policy 2020, which said that select foreign universities will be allowed to operate in India. The government's move seems to be yielding results. Business Standard recently reported that London Business School, King's College in London, the University of Cambridge, and New York University have started preliminary discussion with the GIFT City authorities and the regulator to establish facilities at GIFT International Financial Services Center.
Now, this has to be looked at from the perspective of the overall attempt of the government to internationalize Indian education. Under the current framework, it is almost impossible for a foreign university to come either on its own or look at a partner and opening up a campus. Okay? There are regulations prescribed by the AICTE, UGC, and so on. The government has announced that they intend to allow foreign universities, the leading foreign universities, to come to GIFT City, and they will be unshackled from the local regulation. So the intent as expressed in the new education policy, now that the direction has, the government has given some direction to that thought through GIFT City. Now, GIFT City is, it's a special economic zone, and it is a deemed foreign territory. So where Indian regulations, will not apply as per the announcement of the government. It's a very bold statement that has been made by the finance minister. So it remains to be seen how IFSCA, which is the regulator, so how IFSCA, GIFT City authorities, and the other stakeholders, how they come together and frame regulations which will actually be, which will be enticing enough for foreign universities to come and set up their campuses.
A recent report by consulting firm Redseer estimated that Indian students' overseas spending is set to grow from the current annual $28 billion to $80 billion annually by 2024. The number of Indian students opting for higher education abroad grew from 440,000 in 2016 to 770,000 in 2019 and is set to grow further to roughly 1.8 million by 2024, resulting in an increased overseas spending on higher education. The significant increase in outflow of students is driven by factors like better educational quality and outcomes abroad, higher standards of living, gaps in the Indian education system leading to supply-demand imbalance, and upward income mobility of Indian households, among others. Ashoka University's Anirban Chakrabarti talks about the policy challenges and the impact that entry of foreign institutions will have on the competitiveness among their Indian counterparts.
If you think about the demand, India's higher education demand, it's huge. So there is no question that we need to allow the foreign universities. So it's almost a globalized thing is happening everywhere. You should look into the whole spectrum. It's not only Cambridge, not only Oxford that you are looking for. but we need to be very, very properly look into the processes, look into the framework. And also, India is a diverse country, and our educational system, higher education system, is also very huge. So we should not go for a policy borrowing kind of a thing. We need to have more policy research on this. You need to be very careful about the regulation. It should not be a floodgate also that anybody can come and anybody can open up their campuses. If you think about some African countries, they have opened up a lot, but the outcome was not that great. Definitely, they will increase the competition for sure. Even the top-notch universities, the IITs, IIM, all those universities, they will definitely have a better competition. But if you think about the number of students who are going abroad for higher studies, it's huge. Yeah. So there is a probability that probably that huge chunk of that cluster will go, not willing to go to outside for getting the degree if they're getting the similar kind of degree on campus. And that happened for many countries like China and all. They have implemented it in a very proper manner. And also, I think, competition, sometimes competition is also good. At least a lot of our universities, they don't evaluate themselves in the international benchmark. So maybe when the new global universities are coming up and opening up your campuses on our campus, so maybe our institution should also have that much of competition level, or their assessment level will also be a little bit of higher. But definitely, it should not be only a money-making concept. We should look into this African context very well. Universities are not multinational companies. It is not like that you are coming into a country, opening up a company, and you are running your business. It's not like that. It's a very tough job for the policymakers also. And I think that is one of the reasons it is taking a lot of time for them also to coming up with a proper policy framework.
The lack of quality in Indian education is reflected in the QS World University Rankings 2022. IIT Bombay was the top ranking Indian institute in the list with a ranking of 177. Only 8 Indian universities made it to the top 400. Apart from fostering a competition in quality, international branch campuses can also help in reducing the foreign exchange outflow. Subsequently, it will help retain the best of Indian talent by controlling the problem of brain drain. More than 8 lakh Indians gave up their citizenship in the last 7 years. Finally, opening the door for foreign universities can improve India's soft power, as it will provide further impetus to the government's Study in India program that seeks to attract foreign students.
Skilled youngsters are indeed the key to fulfilling India's aspiration of becoming a global leader. In an interview to Business Standard's individual Dhasmana, Naushad Forbes, the co-chairman of Forbes Marshall, tells us what gives India an edge over China and how it can become one of the world's top 3 economies. Let us listen into the interview.
India is the 5th largest economy, and in years to come, it could be the in top 3. But when you say the leader, do you have in mind that India will be the topmost, the biggest economy in the world?
As you know, China was nowhere in the ranking. Today, China is not only the 2nd largest economy, but it's in purchasing power parity terms, people argue that it is already larger than the US. In nominal terms, it still has some way to go before it matches the US. India has the same population as China. China today is 5 times our size as an economy, 5 times the per capita GDP, 5 times the overall GDP. We were at the same level 40 years ago. And 40 years back, in these 40 years, China grew faster than India. That's why it's 5 times our size now. We have to, in the next 40 years, grow faster than China. And if we do, and if we're the same size as China, and in 40 years, in much less than that, China is going to be the world's largest economy. If we match China in terms of economic well-being, then I think we will be the world's largest economy.
But why we are not there at the moment? What ails our economy?
We need a combination of industry and change in what industry does, change in institutions and how we manage, and change in the role of the state and the policies that we have. And it's those, so there are lots of changes needed, and we need to recognize that the way in which industry, institutions, policy will interact one with the other needs to be done consistent with our broad, very diverse country and culture. If we behave as we do as Indians, then let's define the state role and the government role as a limited role. They have some essential things to do, and those essential things the government must do well. And by doing just very few things, it should do them well. But there are many, many things that our state tries to do that it does badly and which it should get out of the way for. That's the story post 1991. The state simply stopped doing certain things and the country progressed. The state needs to continue stopping doing things and leave it to the private sector to take those on. Running Air India is a good example of progress that we've seen recently, by the way. That's the kind of thing the state should not do.
National priority is to create millions of jobs in the informal sector and contract labor. Do repeal of farm laws, does that affect shifting millions of jobs to the manufacturing sector?
Well, the farm laws, I thought the farm laws were a good thing. I thought they were a good reform, but the farm laws would help in boosting agricultural productivity. The farm laws were not going to create employment as such. We've been successful as an economy in creating millions of informal occupations, informal jobs. Informal jobs are better than these agricultural jobs and these marginal productivity agricultural jobs that people came from. But they're not great jobs, and they're not great jobs because they don't have security and they don't have the ability to raise productivity in the long run. That's what makes manufacturing jobs so attractive. We know how to raise productivity, and we can put relatively unskilled people to work by the million in good quality jobs. That's the advantage of manufacturing. It's something that we've generally missed. Even our manufacturing growth has not been employment-led. It's been skill and capital intensive led. There are exceptions. Tourism is a wonderful exception.
Recently, former RBI Governor Raghuram Rajan has prescribed in a lecture in St. Stephen's as well as in his article in newspapers that India should rather focus on services-led export strategy instead of focusing on manufacturing. What's your take on that?
I would remind you that Prime Minister Vajpayee talked about how India may have missed the manufacturing revolution, but we would go straight from the agricultural revolution to the services, from an agricultural-based economy to a services economy. I was skeptical then. I'm still skeptical. And the reason I'm skeptical is not because of growth. I think we can have a very rapidly growing economy on the back of huge service growth. That's what we've actually had. I'm skeptical only from the employment perspective, that for us to really be a vibrant, successful economy in the long run, we need to create millions and millions of good quality jobs. I struggle to think of how we will create millions and millions of good quality jobs only through services. Where are those opportunities? They are in a set of jobs, right? But look at the bulk of service sector jobs in developed countries. The bulk of service sector jobs are not those skill-intensive jobs of, let's say, doctors and bankers and so on. The bulk of those jobs are people who serve food in restaurants, people who clean homes, nurses more than doctors. I think Raghuram Rajan is exactly right in advocating a real good, focused service sector, export-oriented drive. He's exactly right to be arguing that we should be, in our negotiations for trade with developed countries, we should be focusing hard and requiring that these service sector exports and remote service provision should be permitted freely. All of that is exactly right. Will that in itself add up to the millions of jobs that we need? That's where I'm skeptical. I think we're too big a country. I think we need it all. We need lots of service sector jobs to be created. We need lots of manufacturing jobs to also be created.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Forbes.
After Naushad Forbes' vision for India's economic growth, let us now move on to the markets. Sanctions against Russia received lukewarm response from investors. The broader indices outperformed the frontline indices yesterday, but should you chase this rally? Let us find out.
Despite the worsening Ukraine-Russia crisis, global markets stabilized on Wednesday as sanctions announced by major economies, including US, UK, Japan, and Australia, hit markets not with a bang, but with a whimper. Instead of a sweeping package that crippled top Russian banks, cutting its financial transactions off the global economy, or personally singling out Vladimir Putin, the US and its allies settled on a modest first tranche of penalties. Markets responded with a shrug, underwhelmed by the tit-for-tat approach. The sanctions targeted a pair of Russian banks, VEB.RF and Promsvya's bank, as well as 3 members of Russia's elite with close ties to the Kremlin. The penalties also sought to freeze future purchases of Russian sovereign debt. Yet the sanctions hardly amounted to the economy-crippling measures the US and its partners long telegraphed if Russian troops were to roll across the border. Not surprisingly then, the BSE Sensex and the Nifty 50 closed with tepid losses of 0.1% each, ending at 57,232 and 17,063 level, respectively. However, the broader indices outperformed the frontline indices. The mid-cap index on the BSE advanced 0.6%, while the small-cap index climbed 0.9%. The likes of Yari Digital, Raymond, Orient Bell, Crompton Greaves, Oberoi Realty, Adani Power, IRCTC, and JSW Energy rallied between 3 and 20%. This bounce back comes after a sharp fall of over 10% at index level in the past 1 week, where 13 stocks from the Nifty Mid Cap 100 pack and 18 from Nifty Small Cap pack hit 52-week lows. So does the reversal mean that the downward trend has bottomed out, or is it just a dead cat bounce? Let us go to Business Standard's Avdut Bakkar for a quick technical analysis.
The current trend for mid-cap and small-cap stocks looks tentative, rather it shows a riskier prospect. However, if both the indices show aggressive reversal on a positive note, then one can look for early entries. At the moment, there are about 13 stocks in Nifty mid-cap and around 18 stocks in Nifty small caps hitting fresh 52 weeks low. Mid-caps include stocks like Amara Battery, Exide, Manapuram Finance, whereas in small caps we have CEAT, Indigo Paints, Rallies India. These are the stocks which are hitting fresh 52 weeks low and severely losing their upward momentum. On technical front, Nifty mid-cap needs to defend 50 weekly moving average placed at 28,270 levels so it can revive some hopes. Whereas for small cap index, which has violated most crucial support levels of 200 DMA and 50 WMA, 50 weekly moving average, it is highly advisable based on the chart to stay sidelines, especially for small cap index.
Fundamentally too, D Street mavens say investors should stay away from the space as market situation remains volatile. They also say investing in large caps could be a better option at the moment where balance sheet strength is strong. As regards today, the developing situation in Eastern Europe and monthly F&O expiry back home will guide the indices. That apart, stock-specific action, oil price movement and bond yields will also affect the market sentiment.
Market regulator SEBI cracked down against 6 individuals last month for allegedly manipulating stock prices by using the Telegram app. This incident again highlighted how misinformation or fake news spreads quickly on social media platforms, ducking even the trained eyes. Dissemination of fake news or misinformation also sees a drastic jump during the elections. Our next report tells us more about the age-old menace.
National Crime Records Bureau data showed that incidents of fake news and rumor circulation saw nearly a threefold rise in 2020 over 2019. A total of 1,527 cases of fake news were recorded in 2020, compared to 486 cases in 2019 and 280 cases in 2018. Clearly, fake news and misinformation are a growing menace in India. But what exactly qualifies as fake news? Let us find out. A lot of things you read online, especially in your social media feeds, might appear to be true, but often they are not. Especially misleading are articles that read like and look like a news article, but in fact, they are only mimicking a news article and are deliberately promoting false information. That is the strict and narrow definition, which says that any news article that is verifiably and intentionally false and has been designed to manipulate your perception of real events, facts, and statements qualifies as fake news. The phenomenon of fake news is closely associated with politics, especially in places where it is highly partisan. Therefore, some experts recommend that we avoid using the term fake news, as its close association with politics can lead to a very narrow definition that might not be adequate in describing the diverse forms of misinformation that are prevalent today. Instead, the term false information or misinformation might be preferable, since it can refer to a diverse range of disinformation on topics such as the environment, health, and economics across all platforms and genres. While fake news is narrowly understood as false political news stories, the term misinformation, for example, can also cover WhatsApp forwards containing rumors and altered images. This broader definition is especially helpful when dealing with fake news and misinformation in the Indian context. According to experts, most misinformation in India comes in the form of images and videos, where the attached text blurb is most often the source of the misinformation. And these are shared overwhelmingly over WhatsApp on mobile phones. Images and videos on the internet are often repurposed to change their original context and then used to spread misinformation. For example, Pakistani social media handles on February 27, 2019 shared a video which claimed to be showing a captured Indian Air Force pilot. These posts came after Pakistan claimed that it had shot down 2 Indian aircraft inside its airspace and arrested 1 pilot. However, an alt news analysis of the video found that it was dated back to February 19, a day before the Aero India show in Bengaluru, when 2 Surya Kiran aircraft crashed during rehearsal, killing 1 pilot and injuring 2 others. The video shared on Pakistani social media was actually of a civilian in Bengaluru comforting one of the injured pilots who had parachuted out of his aircraft. Similarly, in January 2019, a viral video on Twitter gave viewers the impression that Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal was drunk. In fact, Kejriwal was sober in the video, which had instead been edited mischievously. So, experts advise people to be vigilant and question the information presented to them.
Meanwhile, in Pakistan, the government has introduced a new cybercrime law under which anyone found guilty of posting fake news about the military, judiciary, or public officials can be jailed for up to 5 years. But it is drawing criticisms from various quarters. Critics say it was brought to stifle freedom of speech. That is all we have for you today. For more news and analysis, log on to businessstandard.com. We'll be back tomorrow with our next episode. Thank you for watching.
If you like this video, share it and subscribe to Business Standard. For more news, views and insights, log on to www.business-standard.com. Do also follow us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Telegram and LinkedIn.